So welcome to the cataloging committee meeting for August 7th. I had to stop and think what day it is even. Did everybody get a chance to look at the agenda? I didn't even pull it up here, sorry.
Yes.
Is there
Yes.
anything that anybody wants to add to the agenda? Sorry, I know I have them here somewhere. There they are. Okay. No additional items at this point?
I had some, but I've totally forgot what it was.
Okay. I'm going to quickly check. Okay. I don't think we have April meeting minutes. I didn't get a chance to double check my email yet this morning. My notes said that Beth was doing the ones from the April meeting. And when I discovered that, she was already on the road, so I'm not sure if she's had a chance to find it either. So we will skip that for today, and we will come back to that the next meeting. I'm going to pull up Sage website as part of our next agenda item, the Cat 1 policy documents update. In March, we took to the Sage User Council a draft. Sorry, I can't do both at the same time, so just a moment. And they came back with some suggestions, which we, the mentors worked on the documents a bit more, and we returned for some additional feedback and approval in May at the annual meeting, the end of May. It was approved by the council with an additional piece added. So it's taken some time for me to get it together, the last pieces, and get it formatted to put it up on the website. They have been posted. They are right here on the cataloging page, main page under policies, where the cataloging policy, the main one we've had for several years, is posted right underneath. There are 3 pieces to this. They're addendums actually to the cataloging policy. The first one is core competencies for cataloging, and it lists the 3 different levels and kind of what the basic items are that they need to have mastered or be working on, kind of thing, or understand how to deal with, so that both catalogers and directors can be aware of what these different areas entail. And this is basically taking the information as we've been working with it the last several years, as well as from the original policy. So, any questions on that? Boy, it's very quiet. I'm assuming that means no questions. So we'll look at the next addendum to that policy, and it walks through the requirements for the Cat 1 level, and kind of lays out kind of some expectations as well as what's really needs to be behind a cataloger in their experience and knowledge before they get to this point of actually applying. And then it talks about what needs to be done and what kinds of training needs to happen and what the process will be. So that's this second document is literally talking about the requirements of it. Is there any questions?
Where is this posted, did you say, Dia?
On the SAGE website. And I will be sending out an email hopefully this week to the SAGE CAT list with this information. But it all depends on my timing here. So anyway, the idea was we'll announce it and talk about it here, and then we will actually put out information to the whole community so that they kind of know what's going on. So. And then the third addendum is the application form itself. Excuse me. Some basic information, just kind of give us information about who the person is, what you're doing, and kind of outlining some of your cataloging experience and training if you're applying. And if you have specific training interests that maybe we can help guide you to training that's available for that. And then we all felt, including the council, felt it was important to have the supervisors and directors sign off on these things because it's a budgetary thing as much as anything for each of the libraries, both for staffing and also for training. There has been $2,000 set aside in the SAGE budget for cataloging training with the intent that SAGE could pay towards half of some training. So it's not like it's going to be free training. And once that $2,000 for the year is gone, it's gone. So any questions about this whole process? And these applications, once they're filled out, can be directed to one of the mentors or to Beth as the system administrator. And then they'll go to the mentor meetings for process at that point on.
This is Ellen. I am on Catherine's computer and I'm trying to get to the SAGE website to look at it, and I can't seem to do it. Could one of you guys just give me the address, the computer address for it? She doesn't seem to have a shortcut.
Are you not seeing it on the screen? Did I not get it on the screen?
I called in on the phone. Maybe I should.
Okay, that's okay.
Maybe I should transfer over to the computer. Would that be easier?
It doesn't matter. The email or the web address is sagelib.org.
Okay.
So does anybody have any burning questions at this point, or comments, or? Okay. So we'll move to the next item in the agenda, which is the 245 field preferences. And I apologize that I didn't pull up the email that was sparked the other day. And I'm afraid at this point it would take me longer to find it than I find my paper copy, which I'm not finding either. So I may be grabbing for my email. Lori sent out an email to SageCat, excuse me, 2-3 weeks ago, on this topic. And it's something that we've been discussing at the mentor group meetings. Hopefully I still have it in one of the sidebars. I see a chat. Thanks, Lori, for posting that.
Yeah, it won't do Ellen any good if she doesn't have the page up, but
right.
There it is.
Okay. I'm going to cancel that for now. So basically what this topic is a discussion about the preferences in SAGE of whether we are going to list a series title along with the title of the particular book, or the book title and continue to trace the series as we have in the past in the 490 and 8XX fields. What we're seeing is that there is a lot of records becoming more available that are listing the series title as the 245 subfield A. This seems to, we're not sure exactly how or why this is generating, but we think it's probably coming more from publishers and or vendors that are trying to push buying series to continue sales. However, we don't really know. Now, I need to preface this whole discussion that we're not talking about graphic novels here. We're talking about anything other than graphic novels. So the preference in SAGE is to continue to do the book title and do the tracing of the series in the 490 8XX fields, which means that obviously we're going to have some cleanup work to do over time to clean up these kinds of things. And we're asking catalogers in SAGE to be watching for the best records in that format as opposed to the other format, because we think it will serve patrons better in the long run. And it tends to be more the national side of things. So on my screen is an example, and we can actually do some looking up on the catalog too if people feel. It's Upside Down Magic, book number 3, with the book title of Showing Off. The preference within SAGE would be to do as this right here is done, with the 245 subfield A being Showing Off, the 490 Upside Down Magic, book 3, and then the 8XX field as the appropriate authority would leave it to show. Any comments, any questions about this, any discussion?
This is Lori, and I just feel, as is usual, one of your primary resources is to make sure you search the catalog to look for precedent and make sure you're not starting a new trend when there's a history of a different treatment on an item. I think, however, with these 245s and with the growing inclination, for especially for stub records or for records from vendors, it appears that they're pushing to include that series name in that 245 line. And so some people aren't catching those. But as a rule, check the catalog, and if you see a lot of confusion, if you don't know how to handle it, contact a mentor or share it with the group and we can address it. One of the biggest problems that I did find with this practice, this recent practice, is that some libraries are actually creating duplicate IB records in order to display the 245 they wish, and that of course is not anything we want to be setting precedent on.
Thanks for that clarification, Lori.
I wasn't sure if it clarified anything.
Oh,
I'm feeling like I just landed, Dia. Does everyone agree with the need to find a uniform way to treat these, and do you think we're on the right track? I haven't heard a lot of discussion after the email. A lot of people did appreciate the clarification. Does anyone see a problem with trying to maintain this integrity?
No, I don't see a problem at all.
It looks.
Of course, the obvious issue is we were all trained initially to list everything as it appears on the title page, and these publishers are increasingly putting that series title right on top of the item title, and that's
looking like it is the title.
Right, and that's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine and I have talked about that off and on, that you'll get a book with 4 different things on it that could be the title. And there are, it's a spin-off of a series that's a spin-off of another series, and it's very confusing.
If it's confusing to us as catalogers and library staff, imagine what it's like for the public.
Mm-hmm.
And Jenny just posted a message where she said that she sees the main problem is that training all the catalogers or getting this out so that catalogers are aware of this. I think we're doing the best we can, and I guess if we see a chronic problem, then it's up to one of the mentors to contact them and to try to train or to point out what the treatment is. And after that, we'll go to public dunking.
Any other comments, questions, clarifications?
Is this going to be in the SAGE website so that all the catalogers have access to it so that we can all be on the same page?
That is a very good question, which leads me back to something that I had hoped to do. This is Dia. I had hoped to pull a number of policy things that we had kind of preferences, that kind of thing together, and have an area on the website that's posted in. I have not had time to work on that. I've had to focus a lot of energies within my district to the last several months that was not anticipated. And so I still hope to do that. It's still on my list of hopefully one day. But this maybe is a good thing to start that, a section, and say to be continued. So see what we can do in the next few weeks to month to have that happen. So thank you for that question. I think that's a good.
There actually is, on our webpage, there's actually some conflicting information on this.
Yeah, and we need to clarify some of it.
Right, or then how do we go through? I don't add things generally to the webpage. I'm a little timid about this, but it would be nice to be able to get just one cataloging tip unified on the 245 field. This would be the third. This would be the third one in that area.
Okay.
And the other thing is, I was hoping to be able to incorporate it in the rewriting of the documents, for our cataloging reference work.
If we ever get to getting them done.
I know, but even in the draft form, I tried to think is that appropriate to add some shorter version of what my email said right into the draft I was going to ask you a few weeks ago.
Well, that's something probably for us to explore when we get to the document again. So,
this is a really hard situation for all of us. You know, we're not. It's really frustrating because I mean the volunteers that are trying to keep the cataloging field organized. It's all just fitting it in as we can, and just like we keep falling behind.
yeah,
And
on both sides.
Yeah, and then the poor catalogers can't find unified resources. It's really not an ideal world at all.
No.
I don't know the answers.
Unfortunately, none of us have those answers.
Keep costs down. It's unfortunate because they don't want to hire a cataloging specialist because that's another paid employee. But in my mind, I would really appreciate it if I didn't have to try to volunteer in this kind of work. I understand the need, but I have such a hard time finding enough time.
Mm-hmm. Joyce, you asked a question in the chat. If someone puts the series in a 245, can we change the record? In an ideal world, the mentors would say yes. However, we don't really recommend that everybody just start making lots of changes to bib records for various reasons, some of which sometimes there's bits and pieces that get missed. So as much as I really hate to say this, for the time being, if there's one that really needs to be changed, it would probably be better to forward it to a Cat 1 person and or a mentor to make those changes. And that's kind of what the mentors talked about on their last meeting in terms of changes. We've seen some really interesting things that have gotten changed between formats and whatnot, and this is kind of hedging some things that may also get missed. So, Carmen, is that not kind of what we were talking about?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
We have a list of the mentors, but is there also a list of Cat 1s to refer to?
For the most part, the mentors are all Cat 1s. There's a couple of others, but before we put their names out, we probably need to ask them if they wouldn't mind getting some emails from time to time to make some changes. So let us make some inquiries on that, and we'll go from there. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Yeah, basically what's happened is it's only the mentors are Cat 1 primarily, and they've all agreed to help. And some of the other people who feel that their administrative desk doesn't want them to do a lot of that extra work, they try to keep their heads down a little bit. So basically your mentors list is the best way to go.
Okay.
Right.
That makes sense.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions or queries on this particular? Carmen, do you recall the example that you sent that you said, this is right up the alley? Did you want me to pull that up? Or do you think it's necessary?
Well, if we've discussed it, I don't know if it's necessary. It was a very good one, though.
Well, I've got the catalog up, so it wouldn't take long to pull it up.
Okay.
Do you, by chance, remember what it was?
Yeah, because it's still sitting on my desk for me to look at the record so it can go out.
Okay. So what method do we want? I think you sent me a TCN or something, but I just happened to see it in my webmail last night, so.
The Day of the Duchess by Sarah McLean.
Day of the Duchess.
Uh-huh.
McLean, M-A-C, oops, don't need cap lock, M-A-C-L-E-A-N?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. We have it both ways in the catalog, just
Right.
as we were talking. I haven't looked too far at this, but Carmen and a couple of the catalogers were looking at this the other day. So, but I do see these wouldn't be a match in terms of merging, but in
Right.
terms of how they are cataloged, this is a perfect on the discussion of the ways that it's put in two different ways, with the 245A being the title of the book and the 245A being the title of the series, followed by the book number and the title, the book title. So Carmen, I'm assuming you're planning to make the correction on this one?
Yeah, I will go into the paperback and fix it, but I didn't want use one example so we didn't mess with it.
Thank you, I appreciate that. This is a good example. It shows it really clearly right here, the two together.
And it's not it can't be merged because
No.
they're totally different.
Right, exactly.
Is this something that is on the screen right now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'm not getting that. Let's see. I had the other one, but
Okay, if you go into the catalog and you look Day of the Duchess, author McLean, then you'd see. Okay, any further questions, comments? If not, yes.
Another thing that this display shows, it's always frustrating to me that under our left-hand column, where you can scope out by different fields, two different personal authors with the same return. We have two records.
One has a period, one doesn't.
Not.
Yeah.
I
know. And I think Beth has been looking into, and I think I've heard some other libraries that have been looking into that. I just don't think, unfortunately, it's been very high on priority of anybody's development list. But yes, it is very frustrating.
But would you consider that also just something that catalogers should just have pointed out, or is it truly just a system flaw? Because
it's a system thing, because probably if we looked at the first one, it probably is followed by a subfield E, author or creator or something of that nature would be my suspicion. We'll pull it up and look.
Actually, the next one is.
Yep. Subfield E, author.
So it ignores commas,
right?
But it notices periods.
Yeah.
Just ignore the periods. You know?
I wish it would. Unfortunately, I don't know.
If it can ignore commas, it would make sense to me that it should be able to ignore.
It's probably a programming thing. It's deeper than I want to get into right now, that's for sure. But it is annoying.
Okay.
And I'm sure it's very frustrating for the public.
Okay.
The last two items on the agenda that we came up with have to do with reminders. And we just want to reiterate a couple of things. One I just alluded to with the question of can we make these changes. We've been seeing some major changes to bibs of late. Lori sent an email out last week, 2 weeks ago. I think it was titled something like Blu-ray versus DVD to some libraries that had items attached to a record. Couldn't tell if they were Blu-ray or DVD. The format in some ways said it was one, in other ways it said it was a different, and we don't know where along the line something happened to this record. But what we want to caution people is find a record that matches what you have if you need to import. Rather than finding a record that's similar and making major edits to or major changes to the bib, especially in terms of format changes and other things. There are a lot of little key things. If you are not familiar with the depth of MARC and the depth of the standards, either AACR2 and or RDA, that you could definitely miss, that will cause confusion and consternation to not only the public, but staff as well. So it's critical, being a consortium that shares bibs, that we try to make sure we keep the integrity of the bib records as they are. So especially if there are others already on a bib record, please don't make major edits of that kind of nature to the bib, because it literally changes the integrity of the bib, and then items don't really match any longer, oftentimes. So if you have questions, you can't find matching records for specific things, and you're frustrated with that, contact a mentor and we'd be happy to help work you through a process of this, either creating records and or helping get a system in place that you can find records.
You all, this is my first meeting, so you guys all may know the answer to this already, but how do I know that, I mean, I spend a lot of time importing stuff, and how do I know that I'm not messing it up in the ways that you're talking about? Does somebody monitor and check the bibs that are imported?
Not necessarily on a regular basis. A lot of times they're just stumbled on, which is then part of the unfortunate part of trying to track down what's been going on, what's occurred, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Because I assume that I'm doing it all right, but I don't actually really know, unless somebody tells me. But that seems like that's one of the things that you guys are really short on time, because you're so busy with everything else that you can't keep track of every single thing.
Ellen, do you use OCLC? Do you use CAT Express?
The district does.
Okay.
Is that what we?
That's what
I think I call it something different, but
that's what your temp bibs. Then the district picks up those.
Okay.
Sorry, that's why I jumped in, Ellen.
That's all right.
You use
the quality of
Z39.50.
The what?
You use the Z39.50 to import.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and the quality in those can really vary a lot. And I think what most of us learn is that we have certain institutions that we kind of find more reliable than others in those Z39s. But you should definitely look through all of the options that are given there and learn to recognize the better quality bibs. Generally look in your leader and see if it's a full record bib. Look to make sure if RDA is available, that's usually your preference. Make sure fields that you know are required. On this thing, on the email that I sent out, where I found several records where part of the record said that the item in hand was a DVD, and other parts of the record said it was Blu-ray. And this has happened frequently. And I think usually what happens with those, that's not something you're going to find in import as a rule. generally that's where somebody on Sage has gone and edited a bit or tried to merge two records, and it had conflicting information. That's not usually something you will find to import. But if you have a question, just send a TCN number or an ISBN and a title author. Send it to any of the mentors, and if they don't respond, try a different mentor. We all try to get back to everyone within a week. Sometimes we are. If you have questions, that can be a good training moment. And I often learn a lot. I mean, I get a lot of catalogers that send me questions, and it forces me to think a lot harder and to look into why we do something or how we find the resource. So it's good both ways.
The institutions that Catherine and I find most, that we use the most, are Prospector and InfoNet. Are those ones that you would recommend out of that Z39 list?
Hard saying. My favorite, whenever I see Seattle now, Seattle has really good quality bibs. I really like theirs. InfoNet is sometimes, InfoNet has had stub bibs. It hasn't had, sometimes it doesn't have a 520 or an author. Very brief bibs,
And
not always, but sometimes they do.
And watch Prospector, because you can have 3 different Prospector bibs on the same search, and they're all very different quality. So
yeah,
I don't know that you kind of got to watch them too.
Okay.
It's kind
I've
of
been noticing
like
that a lot lately. It's almost like they're having some of the same issues we are in terms of duplication of records and more. So, you know, we're all kind of in the same boat in some respects.
Yeah.
The only trouble with InfoNet is they often don't have the 040 field.
Okay, I'll watch out for that.
I guess basically it comes back to, as it's written on the agenda, not to make major changes to bibs, especially those that are currently already in the system.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion on this particular item? Sorry, I'm trying to not rush things so that people feel like they can say something if they're timid about asking questions, or trying to be very, very conscientious of that. And it leads for some uncomfortable awkwardness in quiet spaces.
Dia, if somebody has a book and they think, well, it matches, but I have something that just a little different, you can always call up the owning library if it's in and have them look.
Double check.
Yeah, maybe those front pages, the Roman numerals didn't get added for some reason, or
maybe they didn't notice it when they imported a bib, or
Right, so you always call up the owner. You can see if it's on the shelf or not.
Yep, that's a really good tip.
It can be time consuming, finding the phone number and the right library, and also, Ellen, so once you get familiar with the Sage webpage, there's also a list of all the libraries and the catalogers there. It's in an Excel sheet.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I have one printed out. I hesitate sometimes to ask all of the questions that I have, because I know how busy you guys are. Even though I know you've been saying now to go ahead and ask.
No, that's all right.
Okay, the last item that I had listed on the agenda is a reminder about ISBN searching. This is kind of twofold. In March, and it sounds like Lori's been the one posting all of the stuff on SageCat. Thank you, Lori, for doing this. But she sent out a reminder with the subject, catalogers beware, exclamation point. And in that email, she reminded the importance of searching by more than just ISBN if you don't get a hit. We've got some things going on in the system right now that Beth is trying to address through some re-indexing of the entire database, but it's going to take some time to do it because she has to kind of do it in chunks during off hours or it really bogs the system down. So she's been working on this over a time frame. But I want you to be aware that this seems to be also affecting some of the Z39.50 searches as well. So please, when you're searching, sorry, I'm going to go back to something I've said for years. Z39.50 is just a potential match point. Okay, I've got it out of my system. And it's not necessarily a bad starting point, but don't make that your only search because I guarantee there will be things you will miss because of it. And we don't need more duplications. That will literally bog down the mentors more, trying to figure out why and how, and we have enough cleanup to do as it is. But if you, yes.
Yeah, just a small correction. I think a few people might be a little confused. You said Z39.50 is not an adequate search. I think you meant ISBN.
No, an ISBN search in the Z39.50 is also not necessarily working as correctly as it should be.
Right.
So if you are searching and that's your only search point.
But it's definitely always work on our.
Well, I have found several and reported them lately. They came up at one of the mentors meetings, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, and I've actually been tracking a few. I sent them to Beth, and so she's trying to figure out what's going on with that as well. And so, interestingly enough, I also came across in the last couple of weeks a bib that the ISBN did not search and just the title did not search. And how I found that there was actually a record in the system. I usually do a author title search combination, but I did not see the author because it was actually covered up. It was on the left-hand side and my screen was kind of covering it at the moment. So anyway, when I went to the Z39.50 and went to import it, it told me that there was already a matching TCN in the system, and that's how I went and found it. And when I did search later by title and author, and I don't know if just adding my holding to, adding a volume to it caused it to re-ingest enough that it came up. But when I searched by title and author, it actually came up. So just be aware. That's all this reminder is. Just be aware that there are some interesting things going on right now within the database itself, as well as we should never just take that one as being the catch-all, because obviously ISBNs publishers do some interesting things with.
What you just said, Dia, has been happening to me as well. I've done my searches on the system, on Sage. I've done the ISBN. I've done the author title keyword search and didn't find a record until I go to import a record.
Mm-hmm. And that's why Beth is working on the re-ingesting. Don't know if it's something to do with, the authorities being updated. We don't know. But she found recently that it's way deeper than just a record here or there through some searching and follow-ups that we've been doing. So that's why I just want to let you all know that this is going on, so that you're not totally surprised and caught off guard. We hope that it will get better soon. And I don't have a current update on where we are in the re-ingesting or the re-indexing of the entire system. So I know the last time we had to do this, it took a few weeks. So are there any other topics or any other things that have been raised in people's minds this morning?
This is Ellen, and I have been able to look now at the Cat 1 stuff, and I just my question is, if we fill out the application form, who do we turn it into?
You can send it to any of the mentors or to Beth Longwell.
Just through the U.S. mail, because it looks like it has to be signed.
Well, you can have it signed and then you can scan it and send too.
Oh, okay. I forget about scanning because I never do it. Okay.
Dia,
Mm-hmm.
I just remembered, does everybody know that if they right-click on the author field or even in the series author field that you'll get the authorized form of that author for Sage?
It's always a good reminder.
So, if you're wondering if James Patterson should have a date or not, it'll give you the correct information.
If it's in our authority file.
Right. Most authors are, there's a few odd guys, but at least it keeps, because you never know what the publishers put on the cover. Sometimes you get middle initial, sometimes you don't.
Sometimes the last name is different.
Yeah. So, you want to make sure you're accrediting the right author to the right book.
Tia, do you want to try running through that on a screenshot?
Running through right-clicking? I sure could.
Show how you authorize, right, just show it. While we have some other catalogers here.
Yeah.
Can you bring up a BIP record, bring up a Patterson or somebody?
I'll just use one of these that was up here earlier. We'll see if...
Okay.
You can do it also with subject headings. I don't know if you said that too, but let's start with McLean, with author. So if I right-click on anywhere on the author's name, you'll have this little pop-up beside. And she's right here, and if you hover, you'll get a pop-up to the right that gives additional information. You can actually go over, sometimes it's a little tricky, you can go over and actually click on and apply whatever. If you spelled it wrong or you didn't quite have everything there, and it will have, like I'm gonna go down here and just hover over this particular author that has a date with it. You'd have to click on both pieces, both the name and the subfield D for the date to have those applied. If it does do some funny things, if there's something else in there, it sometimes puts them in funny orders if there's already, especially like in the series. So just be aware of that.
Well, and if you think it's the right one, you can just apply full authority and it corrects any spellings and everything.
Yep.
This is a revelation to me, so thank you very much for showing that.
You're welcome. And that works on any of the fields that have authority control. So that would be authors, subjects, and I just saw a very odd thing in this record.
It needs
the
a space.
The second 520 is just really weird, but it looks like it's, yeah, anyway, deal with that later. Back to my statement. Authorized fields are the author field, the subject fields, and the series fields. And by the series fields, not the 490s, but the 8XX fields. So 100s and 1XX, 7XX, 6XX, and 8XX fields. Those are all considered authority control fields.
What if there's nothing in the Sage field that matches what you want to put in?
That's when then you have to go look, because it may be that we don't have it in our authority file yet. You'd have to go to like the Library of Congress authority records.
Okay.
And sometimes you don't find them there yet either. So then it's just kind of, you have to do the best you can.
Well, I can tell you from experience, Cattle Drives is not an authority of any sort, even though it is in Eastern Oregon.
And subjects is a little bit different in terms of, yes, most of those authority records are, they may not be in our system, but they are in Library of Congress, unless they're fairly new concepts that are going through the NACO and SACO process of being added. And NACO is name authority and subject authority, something group. Anyway, but yeah, don't make up subject headings, please. What I'm talking in terms of doing your best effort is with like the authors, because sometimes they're independent or a self-published, and those are just plain difficult. And I don't care who you talk to, they're all going to say that. Any other? I don't want to cut us short, but we are approaching 12, and I want to respect people's times. The next cataloging committee meeting will be, in our normal rotation, would be October 2nd at 11 o'clock, and it's still Pacific Daylight Time, I believe. So, again, I'll try to have an agenda or at least a notice about the meeting about a week before, with probably an agenda. I can't remember. The agenda will be probably looked at prior to that, so it'll probably be both out about a week before. So if there is no other burning questions or comments, I would adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for your attendance and your input this morning.
Thanks,
Thank
Lori.
you.
And thank you, Lori,
Thank
for
you.
doing the recording.
It was very informative. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thanks.
Have a nice week, everybody.